So, hi everyone. How are you doing tonight? Okay. So, my name is Becky, and hi guys. Hi. I've been a leader here at RY since October 2021, and this is my very first time speaking. I've never spoken anywhere before, so I'm excited and a little bit nervous.
And I'm GP, and you'll know me. Hey guys, you'll know me as one of your RY leaders, but if you guys didn't know, Becky and I are married.
Yeah. All right. So, because this is a relationship series, we thought we'd take the first little bit and tell you guys a little bit about our relationship history and kind of how we met each other. So, both of us are from Ottawa. We were both born there,
613.
and yes, 613. Both our families are from there. And we actually met at this young adults group at Woodville Pentecostal Church. And this church was a church that I grew up at. I had been going there my whole life. My parents went there. I was just always there growing up. And GP was the new guy that showed up to the young adults group. And I was like, hey, he's new.
Yeah, I was actually in a pretty low part of my life, and I felt that God wanted me to go and join a YA group, so a young adults group. So I wanted to go to one where I knew absolutely nobody. So I picked one
Such a weirdo.
at Woodville, and on that Thursday night, I walk in, and the first person I see was somebody I went to elementary school with. So there went that plan. But I did end up meeting Becky's parents that night, and I remember thinking to myself, I was like, oh man, these guys are pretty chill. They would make great in-laws.
See, you know it was meant to be. All right. So we started dating in the summer of 2019. And for our very first date, GP asked me out to go salsa dancing. I know. I feel like it was the spiciest part of our
I don't know
relationship.
what that means. I don't know what that means.
Um, and then in March of 2020, of course, COVID hit. And so, because we were in separate households at the time, we had to stay in our little bubbles. And so, it was kind of like doing long distance, but in the same city. So, GP would text me, and this is when he found out I'm a really bad texter. So, we worked through that part early on in our relationship. Communication.
Yeah, and it got worse actually because what in one way it was a good thing. So I moved to Toronto in July of 2020 because I accepted a job offer, but that really meant that we were actually doing long distance for real at that point. And so Becky would sometimes leave Ottawa at 5 a.m., drive for 4 hours, meet me at like 9, and we'd hang out for the day, and at 5 p.m. she would drive back to Ottawa, and
That's
then
right.
she'd get home, and I'd
Do it
do
in
it
one
all in
day.
one day. So shout out
Yeah.
to her for
You
doing
do
that.
it. Got to do it straight. You got to
Yeah.
do it straight.
I would do it, but I'd always fall asleep on the way, so it took me a long time to get back home.
Yeah.
And then we got engaged in October. Woo! Yeah, you can see the photos there. And yeah, but we were still doing long distance throughout that whole time.
So then in June of 2020, we got married.
21.
Oh, sorry, 2021, not 2020. June of 2021, we got married. Yeah. And so it's been less than a year since we were married. Yeah.
That's a fire photo.
What, what a great picture. It's my favorite one, actually. Anyway, so it has been 8 months that we've been married, so we're still very new at this. And June of 2021 was when I moved to Toronto.
So was that the drama-filled romantic story you guys were expecting? No? Yeah, I didn't really think so.
Yeah. So after hearing our story, the non-drama filled one, would you say that we belonged together? Our topic tonight is about, oh my goodness, GPA.
Yeah, I snuck that one
He
in.
made the slides, I didn't. All right. So our topic for tonight is about the end goal that many of us have, which is finding the one, or finding that perfect match. So why do you guys think that it's a goal for so many people to find that one person? Just shout it out.
Shout it out.
Money?
Money.
I heard money. Somebody over here said, what?
Settling in.
Settling in. Okay, okay. Anybody else? High standards. Yeah, those are all very good answers. Very good answers. For me, I think that many people are looking for that perfect match because they're actually discontent with their life. And they think that that one person will just satisfy that desire inside of them. Specifically in 2022, I think that dissatisfaction is heightened by us like scrolling on our phones and constantly comparing ourselves to other people.
So you guys remember John's bow and arrow a couple of weeks back? And how he was, threatening the crowd with it. Yeah, I mean, you're up there, yeah, so, oh well. But it's kind of like the same thing, yeah, I'm not gonna think.
This is GP's version.
I really wanted to do this. So basically, when we're hunting for the one, it's like we're we're shooting at a moving target. Anyways.
Give a round of applause for Mo.
But I hit him every time, so that failed there.
So, wait, oh yeah. So that was a great illustration of shooting at a moving target, all right? In reality, there is no such thing as a perfect match. There is not a perfect one for each of us.
Yeah, and some marriage advice we received was your spouse will never fulfill all your relationship needs. You need to diversify and find others to be in relationship with. And one way to look at this is with the circles of relationship. It'll be on the screen. So there's 3 circles, and yourself, you're in the middle. So right outside of you, you have people that you're intimate with. So for me, that'd be my family, and it'd be my wife. And then outside of that, you got your friends. So those are people that you can really trust. So I'm a big gamer. I play this game called Destiny 2. I got like a couple 100,000. I have 3,000 hours in it. No shame. No shame. 3,000 hours. So last week they had an event, and me and the boys, we were in this one event for 21 hours last weekend online together. And we pulled it off. We got the dub. But I wouldn't get Becky to do that with me. She's not like that. I don't want her to do that with me, but I got my friends for that, my close friends. And then beyond that, you have your community. So that's like us coming here and linking up with all of you guys at RY.
So many of us focus on a specific type of intimate relationship. We focus on finding the one. And while we do that, we ignore all of the other circles of relationship that we just laid out for you. We also ignore and kind of devalue the relationships that we already have in our life, right? Think of some times that you've sort of devalued the people that you already have because you're so busy looking for something else. An example from my life of how our current relationships affect our future relationships is in my family, I obviously lived with them for a long time, and I learned some things from them. One of it was valuing strengths in personality differences. So for those of you who don't know, I'm like a very rigid person. So if I set my mind to something, I'm gonna do it no matter what. Even if like maybe another option appears over here, like I'm gonna ignore that option. I'm just gonna keep doing what I said I'd do and power through. All right? Now, GP and many people in my family are very flexible people. So it doesn't mean that they're not focused, but it does mean that they kind of, raise their head every once in a while and look at the other options, right? And kind of see all the possibilities that life brings along. So this made a very big difference in my life because I did a Bachelor of Music as my undergrad, and I was in opera performance. So I was determined to become an opera singer. Like, that was my goal. That's what I was going to do. I was gonna go to Europe. I was gonna make money, and I was gonna like be part of a big opera house. That was my goal. In order to do that, you have to do master's program. That's kind of the only way to get your name out there, be part of other opportunities, that sort of thing. So I auditioned for 2 years for master's programs, all in Canada, but I think it was like 5 programs.
Why don't you give a sample?
Okay. Yes, John bullied me into this, so. Okay.
That's not opera.
So here's an example. This is called Regna nel Silenzio.
Never gets old.
Thanks, guys. So, after doing a lot of auditions, I was rejected from every single program. And I kept trying to sort of bang my head against the wall. Yes, thanks, GP. I was rejected. Yes, many times. Many times. Never feels good. So after banging my head against the wall, I was dating GP at the time, and he was like, well, you know, if they're not accepting you, like, why don't you try musical theater? Or, you know, I was teaching piano at the time, kind of on the side. Or like, he was like, why not teaching, you know? Why don't you diversify a little bit, lift your head from this one goal, and sort of look at all the options that are available. So I applied to 3 Bachelor of Education programs. And I was like, I don't think I'm gonna get in, like, you know, I know they're really competitive, and I was accepted to all 3. Thank you. So I took that as a sign from God, and I am currently in a Bachelor of Education with a concentration in music. So I'd like to be a music teacher. Another sort of instance where my family helped prepare me for being with GP was actually just like accommodating other people. So a common theme throughout my life with my family was that constant question of, can I take the car? You know, does anybody else need the car? Can I take the car, right? And we had to like accommodate each other. I'm sure it's kind of the same in your family, right? Where there has to be that give and take. You can't just do what you want all the time. You have to kind of learn to live with other people. So that was kind of an example of how my current relationships helped me to then accommodate GP.
Yeah, and on the flip side, I actually spent a lot of time looking for the one. So I had a lot of relationships growing up. I had a 4-year relationship that started in high school. I had one that lasted for 2 years in uni. I had a couple flings in between, that kind of stuff.
Flings.
But the end result was it honestly affected my relationships with my best friends and my parents and the people that really loved me and cared for me. It drove me to neglect, disrespect, and resent the relationships that I already had. So I'm just gonna shoot out a bunch of things. Who's done stuff like this? Gone and snuck out to go be with people that you're not really supposed to be seeing? Or, this is a pretty good one. So my mom would text me where I'm at 11 o'clock. I wouldn't text her back. Then 12 o'clock comes around, still haven't texted her back. And then I get home at 2 a.m. and guess who's waiting for me there? It's my mom. Anybody else been feel like that before? Everybody else do that? Yeah. And another way, and my family was definitely not impressed, but one thing that really hurt me now, and I realize now that was painful, was after my relationship in university, I grew really depressed, and I really withdrew from a lot of my friends. So my best friends, I have a slide for this. So my best friends and I grew up with them. I'd see them every weekend for from when I was 1 year old, because my parents, they knew their parents from when I was 1 year old till I was in my 20s. And I grew up, we were the closest, we were like brothers basically. But I withdrew from them, and I didn't speak to them at all when I was depressed. When I should have turned to them for help, I should have told them and strengthened my relationship with them and really reach out to them. And when we got engaged, I reconnected with them, but it was really tough because it was 3 years where we hadn't talked to each other at all. Not a single word, not a hi, bye, nothing. And but reconnecting with them was tough. But there they are. They were at my wedding as my groomsmen, so I couldn't have imagined it any other way.
So, to sum it all up, the relationships that you have in your life right now will affect your future relationships. Because I chose to focus on the relationships that I currently had, with my family, I was able to prepare for my future relationship with GP. Just as right now, I'm growing and preparing for my new relationships with new people who will come into my life in the future. So, practical application. How can you grow and prepare for your future relationships? So think about it. How do you get better at something? Well, you practice, right? But you can't just be like, okay, I'm gonna practice my relationships and then practice a bad relationship, right? It's like, for those of you who play basketball or play a sport, it's like saying oh, well, I'm gonna practice my basketball, but then you have the wrong technique, right? You're not gonna get better if you don't have the right technique. So, what is the right technique for getting better at our relationships? Well, the Bible has something to say about that. In Galatians 5:22-23, the techniques that it says we should be practicing are: the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things, there is no law. So those who follow Jesus call these characteristics the fruits of the Spirit. I know it's confusing. What does fruit have to do with it, right? Really, what fruit is about is that it's saying you're gonna grow by doing these things. These things are stuff that you can grow in yourself. They're virtues, they're character traits that you can grow. So, if I ever say the fruits of the Spirit, just know I mean these 9 character traits, all right? These character traits, all 9 of them, are what we need to seek after. They're the techniques that we need to be practicing to get better at our relationships.
And another famous passage that defines what love is in a relationship, and you'll hear this a lot at weddings, it's 1 Corinthians 13:4-7, which says, "Love is patient, Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. So, are you being patient with your parents? Are you being kind to your siblings? Are you envious of your friends? How can you practice for your future relationships regardless of what circle they're in? God put us in relationships in order to practice.
So, to sum it all up, value the relationships that you currently have in your life. They're important. Practice them. Get better at them. They'll affect your future relationships. However, there's a caveat to all that we've been saying so far.
That's a big word.
Yes, caveat. Caveat just means however, or but, or like there's a continuation to this idea. And it's that people are never enough. People will never satisfy you. They'll never actually quench that desire that we all have. I was listening to a podcast put out by this guy named John Mark Comer. He's an author, and he wrote the book, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. If you forget that title and you want to come find me at the end, I will gladly share what it's about. In this podcast, the speaker asked the question, what would it take for you to be fully satisfied? And his answer for us was everything. It would take everything for us to be fully satisfied. It would take all the time, all the money, all the relationships, all the experiences. It would take everything.
All the shoes.
All the shoes.
All the cars.
Yeah, all the purses. Everything in the world to satisfy us. So he goes on to say that if our desires are infinite, but humans are finite, we are left in this chronic state of restlessness, serving the twin gods of accumulation and accomplishment. I really liked that quote, so let's break it down a little bit. Twin gods just means things that we're striving for, things that we're aiming for, things that we put on a pedestal, right? So when we're saying the twin gods of accumulation, we're saying we put on a pedestal accumulation, all right? So what is accumulation now? Accumulation is just stuff, right? It can be physical objects, or it can even be like maybe emotional accumulation, right? It can be tangible or intangible. So that's what accumulation means. And then the other thing that we put on a pedestal in our culture is accomplishment, right? We can never like accomplish too many things in our lives. So we're serving the twin gods, accumulation and accomplishment. So if that's the wrong target, if these two gods are the wrong target, where does that leave us, right? This is kind of hopeless. If our desires are infinite, right, and we can never be fully satisfied, how can we ever live peacefully or contented?
Well, we can look at what the Bible says on how to live a satisfied life. And in Hebrews 12, 1-2, it says, "Let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles, and let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of faith." Now, this is truly how to find fulfillment, peace, and contentment, by increasing your closeness with Jesus. He's the only one who can satisfy our needs, because only an infinite God could ever fill our infinite desires. And the author of Hebrews lays out how we get closer to Jesus.
So the first instruction that the author gives us is, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. All right, so because I'm a teacher, we're going to do another definition, all right? Hinders. So hinders just means to stop or to get in the way. We're raising your language component here. So if I was going to put my hand in front of GP's eyes, I would say, I'm hindering his vision, right? I'm stopping or getting in the way of him seeing. When the author is saying throw off anything that hinders, they're really saying throw off or get rid of anything that stops you from getting close to Jesus. Things like discouraging friends, or TikTok, or our own bad attitude, or cynicism, or apathy, right? Getting close to Jesus is synonymous with spending time with him. Think about it. If you want to get close to a person, this happens in real life too, you just spend a lot of time with them, right? When you hang around Jesus, either through prayer or worship or reading your Bible, you become more like him. The same is true of your friends. I saw an Instagram post that stated, our friends influence how we define normal or wise. They shape our ideas and create a feedback loop. For example, have you ever said to someone, oh, everyone is doing fill in the blank, yeah? Where we feel like everyone is doing something. Everyone is following that influencer. Everyone is doing that TikTok dance. Everyone is starting a side hustle, you know? We have this idea of everyone. Galatians 5:7 says, you were running the race so well. Who hindered you from obeying this truth? So who or what are you hearing from? And is it stopping you from obeying the truth? A lot of the time, the stuff that's hindering us, that's stopping us, it's really small stuff. That's it's not actually a sin to do. It's only a sin when it's taken to the extreme or when it's, overblown. Could be for you, maybe you're spending hours on Snapchat, TikTok, or Instagram, right? The big three, right? Check your phone. See how many hours you're spending on those applications. Yeah, you'll be surprised at how many hours of your day are just spent here when they could have been spent hanging out with Jesus. For me personally, I like to distract myself. I like to be constantly distracted. If I have an hour here, oh, well, I'm going to watch that Netflix show, or I'm going to watch that YouTube video, yeah? We're constantly distracting ourselves to get away from all the thoughts that we're thinking, all that stuff. But what if we spent that time with Jesus instead? What if we did something that was spiritually restful instead and focused on getting close to him? For others of you, your distraction comes in the form of video games and books, in a way of escapism. And I know for me, personally, school and academic standing. Yeah? School can become a sin when you spend too much time on it and not enough time with Jesus. When your pride of how much, what your grades are, where you are on the rankings, becomes more important to you than spending time with Jesus.
And you have other sins they're more obvious, but you've got things like alcohol. If you're over 19, it's legal. And even Jesus turned water into wine. But it's okay if you drink it in moderation. But if you take it too far, are you going out partying? Are you doing it underage? Bad decisions are made when you're drunk. And are you ready to deal with those consequences? Are you ready to face those consequences? Another thing is, say, weed. It's legal right now if you're over 19. And those rules are in place because there's studies show, scientific fact, that if you're under 18 and you're smoking, it can affect your brain. And another thing is sex, which we talked about last week, John's sermon there. It's perfectly fine when you do it in marriage, within the container of marriage, but if you do it outside, it can lead to death to your purpose and affects the generations after you. Generational sin, it can lead to that.
So, what are the sins that are tripping you up? It's not all hopeless. Ask God for help. He will do it because he promised it. This is a promise. He says, with Jesus as our high priest, we can feel free to come before God's throne where there is grace. There we receive mercy and kindness to help us when we need it. God doesn't leave you high and dry. He's not expecting you to overcome your sin on your own. In fact, you can't overcome your sin on your own. You can't stop the sin that entangles or the the stuff that hinders you from spending time with Jesus. It's actually only through his strength and through his help that we can do this. And I challenge you to test him in this. God's not afraid of you testing him. Yeah?
And the second instruction that the author of Hebrews gives is, "And let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us, fixing our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of faith." This is asking the question that we've asked before. Where are you putting your focus in life? To quote a wise old man, ultimately the direction of the race of your life will be determined by where you fix your eyes. Thanks, Sean. Are you focusing on your own needs and wants? Or are you willing to allow Jesus to mark out the race that he has for your life? The people he has marked out to be in your circle of relationships are there for a reason. By keeping our focus on Jesus, we allow him to become the biggest influence on our current and future relationships.
So, what are some things that are stopping you from fixing your eyes on Jesus? What are the things that are stopping you from spending time with him? We're going to take a time of reflection right now. And for me personally, when I reflect and talk with Jesus, I get very distracted. So, what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn off the lights. All right? So don't get freaked out. We're going to turn them off. And that will just really give you a chance to think about and let God speak to you about the things that are stopping you from spending time with him. And I want you to ask him honestly. You can talk to him just like you would a human being, okay? Just ask him, "God, what are the things that are stopping me from spending time with you?" And he'll tell you. I promise.